Hello, my ruthless, adventurous little pirate compadres, and welcome back. Today, my friends, we are going to be doing two massive things. We are going to be finishing off our pirate city here and becoming an absolute global powerhouse on this side of the main continent, and we are going to be getting rid of the British outpost that has been plaguing the island of Fardenlayor Rock this entire time and taking it for ourselves and only ourselves. Last episode, we had taken prisoner and recruited many a British soldier who will now be joining us and who have already joined us as pirates. First things first, they need some proper pirating attire. Using all the cloth that we currently have in storage, we are going to be switching from making the French uniforms that we've been selling to them to making some soldier coats for our new little outfit. Once these coats were completed for our new scallywag squad, we would send them into the armory to equip some new pistols, rifles, swords, and even a few grenades here and there. And just like that, voila, a new squad. Now, I'm not the only one, it seems, to think that this group of soldiers who all came from the Brits would still be fit to be somewhat in their own squad. Our friend, Wiener Schnitzel 186, seems to think the same, and has even suggested the name for them, the Turncoats, which I very much like. But we would only be able to bask in the new squad's glory for a little bit of time before a gigantic man-hunting pack of lions entered the area. This isn't surprising, as there's most likely a food scarcity with the global warming that's happening on the planet. Even we ourselves lately have noticed a significant lack in wildlife on the island to feed to our gators and bears. Perhaps worst of all, this was all going on King's 71st birthday. Sorry about that, old boy. Looks like we'll be putting the party on hold for a moment. As quick as a flash, we all would rush to our defenses, ready to take on these purring kitty cats. And as they approach, we would unleash a barrage from our cannons, muskets, pistoles, and anything else we were holding in our hands. Unlike our other enemies, these lions did not fight for riches and gold. They fought for survival and food, meaning they were desperate and even fearless. So fearless, in fact, even after hitting them with several cannonballs, they were still willing to chase us into the city itself to try to eat us. But our strength and resolve has evolved past even Mother Nature's most simple of instincts in these creatures, meaning in fact that we would end up defeating them in the end. Now that's not to say that it was an easy task to do. We damn near lost many of our pirates, and I'm honestly not exactly excited to check the damage on each of them. And in the end, all we really had to show for it was our lives and a great big pile of rotten kitties. But that's better than nothing, I suppose, and I guess we could go ahead and let King have his little birthday soiree. Now, it might not make sense since he's tried to kill Miz in the past, but we want to try to keep morale high around every corner. Although I don't know exactly who is going to be willing to go or even able to go, as most of our privateering pirates are very much injured and bedridden at the moment, including our poor young Hughes with Hazel and Martin, the founding members with Miz herself. Don't worry, young one, Mama's here. You'll feel better soon, I'm sure of it. And in fact, after about a day or two, he was feeling right as rain. Well, except for the fact that his right eye is missing now. Like mother, like son. The boy is definitely a chip off the old block now. We'll get you an eye patch for that, little fella, no worries. He'll really be living up to that Pirate Prince of Fardenlayor Rock title now, don't you think, Dr. Josiah? Yeah, I think so too. Now then, we are on the track to become a global powerhouse, but of course, to go about doing so and to expand to new horizons outside of our island once we take care of those pesky British, we are going to need a much larger fleet of ships, of course, so we're going to start working on the components like sails and rigging to do so, which will take some time. In the meantime, we're going to be working on that city expansion that we were talking about and filling up the streets and also building the streets within the confines of our big and beautiful walls that we've already built. We're going to be beginning this expansion with two new shops in the western part here, one of which is going to be a tobacco shop shop where we sell plenty of cigars and cigarettes, the most delicious of which. And we're also going to be selling in the second building here some delicious, tasty gin that will get you drunk off your arse. We already grow plenty of tobacco, and we're having to try to take it out or wait for trade caravans to come here to go about selling it, so it only makes sense that we would kind of up the stakes a bit here and up our production by actually rolling it into cigarettes and cigars. And as for the gin, we built a distillery last episode in the city, so maybe it could become something of a staple for our little city-state nation here. Shops like these are also going to be super useful for folks like Yumi who are incapable of violence, which is very much needed in our day-to-day operations around the city and also our privateering duties. So this will give her something to do when we're fighting and killing and plundering. Now, I was given the idea for some new shops by our good friend Rex705 Gaming when they suggested a marketplace as a new area in the city. So thank you very much for that, and I think that's what we're going to be continuing here in the western side as we continue expanding it. A little bit of time later though, and we had finally crafted up all the components like a mast and sail and rigging and sailing instruments and everything else we needed for our next frigate, and it was time to finish this bad boy up. As for the name of this one, we are going to be going with the Weeping Mary, a very foreboding name if you ask me, and as explained and suggested by our friend Shane Richard 9319, not only is this just a great and kick-ass name, but it is also going to be in honor of all of our fallen pirates. And I think creating a frigate to use against our enemies is a very pirate thing to do to honor our dead. And I just want to say you guys have been absolutely killing it with the ship names lately, so thank you all. Speaking of ships, we are currently loading up all the textiles that we have in storage except some of our cloth to continue making some uniforms to take out on a trade mission. Not only a great trade mission where we'll surely make a lot of money, but this is actually going to be the first trade mission that is spearheaded by Hughes himself. I think that the lad is finally old enough for some real responsibility. Now, this responsibility is mostly just for sailing, as Hughes is going to be at the helm of our trade ship, while Martin and the other privateering pirates are escorting him to his destination on our caravels for protection purposes. We wish them good weather and Godspeed, but as they sail the seas back home, we are once again working on some proper improvements that are going to help our city and our nation grow. For you see, cities and expansions and nations and yada 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 need people, and people need food, and currently it doesn't seem like we have enough fields to feed all of our people, at least not with all the cash crops that we've been growing. So we've claimed up some more farmland to the east of our walls for some new big old fields where we're going to be growing a lot of onions to feed everyone. Especially given the fact that there is currently a lack of wildlife on the isle, I think that this was much needed. A few days later, and we were finally arriving at the tribal settlement to go ahead and unload all of our finest textiles in exchange for plenty of moolah. We would begin heading back home and sailing around our home island as we had hundreds of times by this point, but this time it was different. Two ships would appear on the horizon, frigates, not French nor Prussian. It was far too late for us to try to sail away. The only thing we could do now was to prepare our battle stations. Unfortunately, during this battle, the Roaring Onion would be completely destroyed, forcing the Black Widow and our trade ship to leave them behind. There would be no use in trying to salvage it, as the ship had been reduced to nothing but driftwood, completely and utterly decimated. Even worse, we already knew it was time for us to flee, as we had witnessed the crew be killed. and with them would go many of our riches from the trade mission, 2 of our turncoats dead, and much gold and silver lost. Hughes, Martin, and the others would manage to sail away just in time where the frigates would not be able to catch them. Well, I know 2 things for sure. Mother is going to be absolutely livid about this, rightfully so. And 2, it's about damn time we got rid of that British outpost to prevent things like this from happening. We would continue sailing around the island, finally arriving back home sometime later. As we docked our ships, we could see the surprise in everyone's eyes as to why there was only 2 of them left. We would quickly explain the situation to Ms., who was rightfully so livid, as we imagined, and we were all very distraught at the fact that we had been attacked and that we had lost 2 more of our own. Though they were new and we hardly knew them, they were still privateers, damn it. Looks like our ground invasion might be coming much sooner than we had anticipated. We're going to need to prepare much quicker than we thought. First things first, we're going to kick things off with some research into early industrial firearms. Most of the countries and factions on the planet seem to still be using muskets and flintlock and matchlock technology, but there are other technologies on the horizon, such as revolvers and things like that. If we can research these and make our own, this might just give us an edge. We do currently possess many of these different types of weapons already, but some of the more interesting ones, like sniper rifles and also some different types of explosive weapons, could be exactly what we need. Because these new different types of weapons are going to need their very own space and very specific ingredients to go about creating them, we're actually going to be building a gunsmithing production area. Along with our production benches, we also have a small little area for all the resources we need, such as wood, steel, and components, which is the vast majority of resources required. To start us off, we're actually going to be creating our very first sniper rifles. Now, we've never had any of these types of rifles, although we hear they can shoot a very long distance, and that's exactly what we would like. They are very costly in terms of components, as one might imagine, so we'll need to try to acquire quite a bit more of those. But as we begin on producing these new weapons, we are also going to be expanding our docks just a little bit. Now, I know what you're thinking, Rat Knight, those docks are very, very small. What are you going to be putting there, canoes or rafts or something? Well, these are actually not going to be used for any type of anchoring of boats and tying of boats. These are specifically going to be for fishing. You see, my friends, as previously discussed, we are running dangerously low on wildlife in the area for us to hunt, so we're now going to be putting priority on fishing instead. There's plenty more fish in the ocean, and although we already do a little bit of fishing, we're really going to be ramping that up to ensure we can feed everyone some of that precious fishy protein that they're going to need for a fight. A well-fed army is an army that wins. By this point, we had finished up about 4 or so sniper rifles, which cost us all the resources that we had in storage. But you know what, I think that lines up pretty well with how many sharpshooters, you could say, we currently have within our crew, so we'll leave them. Besides, we have a more important type of weapon in mind, called a Ketchum grenade. The only issue is, this little grenade requires chem fuel, something that we don't have any of. But you know who does? One of the tribal settlements off the main continent. As a matter of fact, they have an absolute abundance, as they have one of the largest boomalope farms on the west coast. Given the supply being their supply of the fuel and our demand needing it for our weapons, we would immediately set sail to go out and purchase some and or barter for some. I'm sure they'd be willing to trade some off for some of our fine tobacco leaves, but in the meantime, while we're sailing, we are going to be finishing up our expansion of our new market district. Right now, we're once again going to be adding in 2 brand new shops that we're going to be selling some of our fine products. Now, this isn't somewhere we're going to be selling more of our bulk products or our mass of products like our tobacco leaves and cloth and things like that. We want to sell some actual items that are a bit more complex and take time to make and will also fetch us a pretty penny. So we brainstormed a bit, and what would you buy from pirates? What would pirates specialize in? Well, artificial limbs, of course, like peg legs and hook hands and things like that, so we're actually going to be selling some of these artificial limbs and prosthetics in one of these stores, and in the other, as you might imagine, we're going to be selling some sailing equipment, some sailing instruments, some mast and sails for ships, and anything and everything else like reinforced wood that you may need to build your own or to also keep up with your own ships and fleet. Finally, our trade ship would arrive at the tribal settlement, at which point we ended up buying about 500, almost 600 or so of their chem fuel. And since we still had plenty more tobacco to barter with as well as silver to spend, we would also end up purchasing some more components to help us out with creating more weapons. With these resources in hand, it was time for us to start sailing back home. In the meantime, once more, we are once again fixing up the city, and in particular this time we're actually going to be fixing up Mrs. main building here, the Widow's Revenge. Every good Commodore's home needs a proper trophy room, wouldn't you say, lads and lasses? A nice place to put some of your personal treasures, to mount some of your legendary hunts, and maybe put a few different things like swords that you found or acquired during your adventures, and possibly even a few British officers' hats for display purposes, of course. Ah, young Hughes, just think someday you'll be able to tell your grandchildren about all this that Mama acquired for us and for our empire. You're welcome. Now that that's done though, we're also going to start on some research once more. We need to also focus on making money. Once we get rid of this British outpost, we still need to make plenty of silver. And a crop that would be perfect for doing that is going to be Devil Strand. While Maker looks into some old text about this specific and very interesting type of plant and its properties, we are finally finishing once and for all the Merchant District and our western side of the city. As odd as it may sound, this is actually going to be a growing area for psychoid leaves. As you well know, we've used up the vast majority of our fertile land on the eastern side, and there's very little on the western side of the city, so we had to make some of our own with some planter boxes. We're going to grow these leaves, we're going to brew it into tea, and we are going to become a trade capital. I mean, we already are, but not for psychoid yet, so even more so. We'd also finally figured out how to go about growing our very own Devil Strand plants, and we would end up getting rid of a small field of our tobacco, mostly because we already have so much in storage that we still need to offload. And in case it wasn't clear just yet, this is going to be well worth it even if we stop selling tobacco completely, as tobacco leaves sell for $1.10, while Devil Strand sells for $5.50 per piece. And obviously it should also be considered that tobacco can only be rolled into cigarettes and cigars, which do fetch a little bit more money, but Devil Strand can be created into many different types of fabric outfits and other things created from textiles, which will sell for much more. Speaking of making money, our trade ship had finally arrived back home. Yumi and Tilly were the ones that had taken it out this time and setting sail for the trade, and when they arrived, they actually brought some interesting hairy-looking folk along with him. They had purchased the freedom of 2 Itacan mercenaries who had been imprisoned by the tribal government. Welcome aboard, lads. I'm sure 2 folks of your caliber will come in very handy during our attack. Perhaps even more importantly though, we finally got that chem fuel that they had went out to purchase, the main reason for the trade mission, and we would immediately begin using it to make our Ketchum grenades. Again though, production is tedious and takes time, so how about we check in on our new snipers? A small trio made up of Farak, Brown, and Anarchist with the new sniper rifles that we had created. These fine pirating privateers have the highest shooting skills among all of our crew members, and all of them led by the great and well-renowned Martin. I couldn't think of a better leader for this little outfit. You know though, with all the progress that we're making so far and all these preparations that we're making for our land invasion, I almost forgot to mention that our city is essentially complete. All the districts that we've created for trade and production and also just housing and It is completely filled up to the brim of each wall on each side. I suppose we can always expand those as needed as well. We don't intend on stopping our growth, nor do we intend on stopping our destiny. There are some very, very big things that await us, and this is merely the beginning. Speaking of, we had finally finished up our new grenades, and we are also going to be using them in what I'm going to be calling our Bear Brigade. Mounted atop our furry friendos, and I'm not talking about our new Itacan companions, are some of our privateers wielding the grenades we made and revolvers. All of them led by Hughes. Throughout this series, he has proven himself well worthy of being a leader once Miz is incapable of doing so, or God forbid anything were to happen to her, so it only makes sense that we would at least let him lead his own brigade. But we almost forgot we're so used to attacking people from the sea with our fleet of ships, we never make it to the outpost in time, or maybe not at all with the extreme desert if we don't have some proper land vehicles, so we started making some covered carriages as well as ox carts to pull some of our heavy weaponry. And with that, my friends, it is finally time that we get rid of this outpost once and for all. Off we go. Sometime later, and we would finally arrive. We had imagined what this outpost would look like, but we never thought that it would look this complete. And the place was absolutely crawling with soldiers, maybe even much more than we had anticipated. The entire place appears to be led by a magistrate by the name of Tack. No doubt the source of all of our troubles for quite some time. Well then, come hell or high water, no matter how many soldiers there are, we are going to be destroying this outpost today, or we will die trying. We would immediately begin unloading all of our equipment, like our explosives and our cloth, from our wagons. We began mounting a defensive perimeter, using our cloth to create some sandbags and setting up our cannons, priming them for battle. But we had been traveling for a very long time, so we would take shifts. Some of us would work and set up the equipment for the siege and attack, while others, including even our Commodore herself, would take a little snooze. We need to be well rested for the fight. But once our perimeter was set up, it was time for us to start lining up multiple different sections of the outpost walls with explosives. We were about to infiltrate. Attacking from multiple angles like this should give us the upper hand, no matter how many soldiers there are, as we would all rush back behind our sandbags, mounting our cannons. So begins the battle. First things first, we would cause quite a commotion, blowing up many sections of their walls and infiltrating as mentioned. However, the majority of their forces started coming towards the southern wall where we had detonated the explosives, causing our Bear Brigade to make a retreat, and causing Pezza to be overwhelmed by their forces. The Bear Brigade would end up joining us at our defensive perimeter, firing off many a cannonball, tearing the British linemen limb for limb. Our sharpshooters would end up infiltrating the northernmost part of this little outpost, killing any British they came into contact with, and helping flank them from behind. As the poor magistrate stand in a pile of his men's corpses, we were running them over, using Yumi, who seems to have had a change of heart about violence. Our line and our defense was strong, damn near unbreakable. And with the Commodore by our side, giving some words of encouragement during the battle, we were untouchable. This fight was an absolute slaughter, a bloodbath. The Brits were easily discombobulated and defeated, with many of these fleeing cowards running for the hills. As the moon was high in the sky, the day was ours, and the battle had been won. We rushed to Pezza and our bear, Mr. Cuddles, to ensure that they didn't bleed to death as the enemies were fleeing. Not all of our privateers were so lucky, though, I'm afraid. Both Ben and Tilly had been shot several times, succumbing to their injuries, I'm afraid. But what have we here? Magistrate Tack, still intact? Somewhat, it would seem. It's about time we put you out of your misery, you dumb animal. There, now you don't have to suffer anymore. It's better than what you deserved anyhow. With the rabid dog put down and the outpost completely decimated, we were now free to claim any treasure that was within. And claim it we would, our rightful plunder. We ended up finding a lot of silver and even a lot of gold, as well as a few different things like ambrosia, smoke leaf, and some other things that we could sell, of course. Perhaps most interesting of all, we found a pretty decent sized stockpile of weapons, many explosive crates, as well as some cannons that they were manufacturing. I have a feeling they planned on using these against us. How the tables have turned. Other than the mentioned things here, there wasn't really much for us to take. Though we began to think, perhaps this outpost could be our reward after all. Now, I mean, yes, okay, it is severely damaged, like on the walls where we blew them all to hell, and sure, a lot of these structures are currently burning down, but it could still be quite useful to us. It's essentially a pre-built town just waiting for the taking. We would be stupid not to claim it. For now, though, we'll need to take whatever loot we can along with riches and our lives and get the hell back home and regroup. We'll send out maybe a small party to claim this outpost in the very near future. Finally, upon our arrival back home, we were all rushing to the hospital to start healing up, but we were also getting our carts and carriages back into the town, unloading all of the things that we had taken. Hauling all this to their rightful places is going to take quite a while, so how about we celebrate first? Perhaps in the tavern with some of these nice foreign types of alcohol that the Brits had within their outpost. Nothing like a fine tequila. Ah, young Hughes, a boy turned man. You know what, son? Go ahead and have yourself a drink. We're proud of you, and you've really earned it. You'll make a damn fine leader someday. Damn fine. Hi there, I just wanted to pop in at the end of the episode here and say thank you. Thank you for watching, thank you for watching the entire series, and thank you for supporting the series. The pirates have been a lot of fun to play as, and just like many of our series recently, we will see them again in the future. I'm kind of starting up a few cinematic universe here within RimWorld. We have our RKRU, which has been going on for a couple of years now, I believe, or maybe even 3 years, something like that. We've also recently started up a medieval overhaul universe, and we now kind of have this Napoleonic universe. Not really sure what to call it yet. Maybe Rat Knight's Napoleonic RimWorld universe? RKR, well, no, it doesn't really work. I don't know. But if you have suggestions on that, I'm always open to those. Yes, indeed, we will be seeing them in the very near future, and of course, this is not a goodbye to the universe and these characters, but simply a see you later. Now, before the series and the episode ends, though, I did want to show off some great art from our good friend on Discord, King, who is always making some wonderful pieces of art in general for all of our series, but in particular here for the Pirate series. Just as I said to King, I will say to you guys, I really love the golden rings around Mrs. Tail and her earrings here. It's just, it's perfect. Chef's kiss, really. So, again, thank you all for watching and supporting the series. I love you guys, and I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.